Thousands of angry Cubans have taken to the streets protesting against a communist dictatorship in their country. They're calling for their president, Miguel Diaz-Canel, as an already pathetic communist economy turned even worse during COVID. They're calling for him to step down. They're chanting Libertad, which means freedom in Spanish. There are other cries translating to down with communism, homeland and life, and also we want vaccines. So far, only 1 million of the 11 million people on that island are vaccinated. It's less than 10%. As we've said on the show many times before, anybody who wants to get a vaccine should get a vaccine. And for those at great risk, obviously the vaccine is a lifesaver. But as it so often does, communism has failed the people of Cuba again. There are shortages of not just vaccines, but frankly, everything in this country. The Cuban people live in poverty. Most live on about $20 a month. Less than $1 a day. Everyone is entitled to a pound of beans and 5 pounds of rice every week. They wait in those so-called bread lines that Bernie Sanders is so fond of. The far left is trying its best to isolate this story and these protests to just a simple issue of the vaccines, though. That's what they want you to think about here. It's all about COVID. Liberals, of course, are mortified by this story because it paints a clear picture of what happens when leftism takes hold. The incredible economic decline that comes with far left policies. And to his credit, President Biden did address this earlier today.
The Cuban people demanding their freedom from an authoritarian regime. And I don't think we've seen anything like this protest in a long, long time, if quite frankly ever. The United States stands firmly with the people of Cuba as they assert their universal rights.
He actually did pretty good on this. They are demanding their freedom from communism, let's be frank, a system of government derived and inspired by the hatred of wealth. The same energy we're feeling in this country thanks to politicians like Bernie Sanders leads to Cuba. I went to Havana for New Year's 2019, took some pictures. It's an entire country living in poverty. I had no clue what I was getting into going on this trip. The poorest neighborhood in America is the standard of living in Cuba. It's the way everybody lives. A country that once thrived under capitalism, which was introduced after Cubans escaped Spanish imperialism back around 1900. All of it now in ruins. The grocery stores have almost no food. The grocery stores are some of the most depressing places you've ever been. People actually sell pigs. You see some pigs around. They're quite pricey, though. We'll show you another one here. It's hanging up. It costs $80 for a pig that I saw. There it is right there, 80 bucks. That's 4 months' salary. That's a pricey pig. This was New Year's, so this is what they do on New Year's. It's a big part of the festival. Most people end up going here to get their free food from the government. This is where you go. 5 pounds of rice, 1 pound of beans every week, every person. It's measured on a scale right here. Imagine that's your grocery store. That's your Whole Foods. Cubans sold their freedom for that. But to be fair, there is less inequality. Everybody is very poor together, so they don't have to get jealous of the rich people, except for obviously anybody connected to the government. They have all the money and they're doing just fine. It's easy to see why the Cuban people are angry, though. It's very obvious. I'm surprised this doesn't happen more often. Of course, when you think you're going to get shot and killed, you probably don't want to protest too much, so they must be very angry right now. But don't expect change. Heavily armed troops patrolling the streets looking to suppress an already completely unarmed population. Yes, there are no guns in Cuba at all. One of the first and most important implementations of communism. Obviously, get the weapons. The Cuban president issuing a statement saying, listen to this, we call upon all the revolutionaries of the country, all the communists, to take to the streets. He has also said of the protesters, the people that are protesting him, he's dubbing them the counter-revolutionaries, right? Because the real revolution is the one that happened 70 years ago, right? They want to change a system, he says, or a regime, they call it, to impose what type of government and what type of regime in Cuba? The privatization of public services, the kind that gives more possibility to the rich minority and not the majority? What an absolutely pathetic phony the president of Cuba is, clinging to power, still trying to sell this idealistic lie to any idiot that would listen to it. The hilarity of that comment cannot be overlooked from one of the only people in Cuba with wealth making that statement. Ben Rhodes was an Obama staffer. He tweeted out, the Cuban people suffer doubly from a repressive government and a cruel U.S. embargo. They deserve policies that empower them and help them improve their lives. Now, Ben Rhodes and the Obama White House did tremendous work to benefit the communist Castro regime in Cuba. We all remember Barack Obama going down there and watching the baseball game with the Castros. They opened up commerce. They opened up travel to Cuba. And all of that money, as expected, went straight to the government, of course. And some morsels went out to the people, and some people did a little better. But what it really did was reaffirm that these communists aren't going anywhere. The quality of life, I can tell you firsthand, has not improved since Obama. Hardly any at all, if at all. So we know how that went. But the government's doing a hell of a lot better, I can tell you that. Acting Assistant Secretary of the State Department Julie Chung tweeted this gem out. Peaceful protests are growing in Cuba as the Cuban people exercise their right to peacefully assemble to express concern about rising COVID cases and deaths and medicine shortages. Yeah, that's what this is all about. We commend the numerous efforts of the Cuban people mobilizing donations to help neighbors in need. Yeah, Julie, it's just about the vaccines. Nice try. What's happening right now is sending a message that needs to be repeated over and over again. We need to beat this into people's heads. It's a lesson we should be teaching our kids in school. Cuba is what happens when you destroy the individual and turn society into a collective effort. What happens to the motivation of people when they realize no matter how much you work or how little, the result is exactly the same. This is the fatal flaw of communism. We all know it. Everybody gets lazier, your GDP goes down, down, down. Who the hell's going to work if you're going to get the same stipend no matter what? And you're all sharing for a very small pot at the end of the day. And it gets smaller and smaller and smaller until everybody starves. Then they go out in the streets, take over the government, and they try again. For those who support leftism in general, they'll continue to deny the simple truth as their cause fails over and over and over again, like it always has. They'll never be able to simply admit their core tenets are false because they don't want to feel stupid. They think in some weird way that this idealistic view of humanity can actually exist, and it can't. In Cuba, the protesters understand this. They've lived it. They are it. This video shows a mass of people literally rallying behind our flag in their fight for freedom. It's a beautiful image. We saw it in Hong Kong, too. Check out this clip from CBS this morning, though.
On Cuban television, Diaz-Canel blamed the protest on the U.S. and its trade embargo for a severe impact on Cuba's recent economic downturn.
The Trump administration passed many more regulations, many more sanctions against it, which basically has cut off all income coming into Cuba.
Portia Siegelbaum is a CBS News producer based in Cuba.
So in some ways, she's right. She's dead wrong about the idea that the government is actually wanting to share the wealth of the country with the people. That's what these liberals, and I'm assuming she is one, don't understand. They're missing the same reality they fail to understand about Iran as well, as far as foreign policy. You have to choke off regimes. That's the medicine nobody wants to take. Releasing sanctions gives a little bit more to the people, hardly at all, but secures that these evil regimes stay in power forever. That's what they don't get. Back here at home, you'd be surprised to hear who doesn't want to talk about this story. All the socialists in our government. Bernie Sanders wants nothing to do with this. They despise this story, as I said. It broadcasts to the world what most intelligent people already know, that collectivist ideas will destroy the United States. And nobody better to talk about all of this than Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart of the state of Florida, joining us tonight. Sir, thank you so much for taking the time.
My pleasure.
So just to fill people in, your parents came to this country from Cuba back in the 1960s. I just want to get your top line here, what you think about this, and how has this country changed since the 1940s, since the 1950s, after Castro took over?
It's interesting. I was born in the United States, but,
Right.
but Cuba was one of the jewels of the hemisphere. It was an up-and-coming country with a very strong middle class, a very strong economy. Strong ally of the United States, obviously. And then, socialism, this panacea of wonderful socialism took hold. And now it's one of the poorest countries. They haven't had elections in 62 years. It's been a repressive regime. But not only has it been destructive to the Cuban people, the fact that they have no freedom, no health care, nothing that we take for granted in the United States, but they've also been very damaging to the national security interests of the United States around the hemisphere and around the planet.
It really is something. You see this situation now. The people are obviously very angry, but we've seen this before. What do you think ends up happening here? Do you have any optimism?
I'm always optimistic when people take to the streets and decide that they're not going to stand for it any longer. It's a big risk. Cuban people know the risk that they're taking. This is a regime that will crack down and will murder and disappear people. So they know the risk that they're taking, but they've just had enough. They're not going to take any more of this. It's a regime that's been there for 62 years. It continues to promise more of the same, which is this Orwellian nightmare of socialism and communism.
Yeah.
And the Cuban people know better. And so it's up to the United States now to galvanize the entire world against that regime and in support of the Cuban people, something that, again, I've seen this administration has been kind of weak so far in doing.
I went there a couple of years ago. What I saw was vast poverty. I mean, I saw a country full of people with no money. When you look at the numbers, and is that about the way you see it? I mean, do you see? I see $20 a month for most people living on. Is that about right?
Those are the lucky ones, right?
Yeah,
so a country that was a relatively rich country has become a very poor country.
Sure.
Look, socialism and communism, what it does is it spreads misery, it spreads repression, it spreads violence and hatred.
And poverty.
And again, the worst part is lack of freedom. That's what the Cuban people are demonstrating against. And again, it's up to all of us now to be supportive of those folks, the heroes who are hitting the streets, and make it very clear that those who are repressing, who are thinking of following orders to do damage to those heroes, they need to understand that there will be consequences to their actions.
Understood, absolutely. Former President Trump released this statement earlier today. Remember when Obama attended baseball games with Castros while they imprisoned, beat, and killed the Cuban people? Talking about a game he went to, a baseball game, enjoying his time. That really was something to see. I'm sure you had some thoughts on that. He also said, I stand with the Cuban people 100% in their fight for freedom. Joe Biden must stand up to the communist regime or history will remember. For the Biden White House, and I think for Democrats in general, this is a messy situation because this is a nice reminder to everybody what happens when you go down that road of collectivism.
Yeah, but it's not a secret, right? We've seen this happen time and time again. You mentioned President Trump. I'm glad you did. Nobody has been a stronger ally of the cause of freedom in this hemisphere than President Trump. He was amazing. I like to call him as he was the president of freedom, of the freedom fighters around the world, but particularly in this hemisphere. And I would say this time and time again that these regimes, the Castro dictatorship, the Ortega dictatorship, the Maduro dictatorship in Venezuela, would have not survived another 4 years of Trump in the White House. Let's see now how the Biden administration reacts to an opportunity to support freedom. And so this is it. Are you on the side of the Cuban people and freedom, or are you going to be pandering to the left, the radical left wing around the world, and try to help the regime stay in power?
And real quick, as we're out of time, but I mean, what do you think they do? Because I mean, there's going to be an opportunity for this White House to actually give a lifeline to this regime in a lot of ways. What should they do?
They've said publicly that they're reconsidering and analyzing what to do vis-a-vis Cuba. I think the answer has been expressed by the Cuban people themselves. Stand with the Cuban people against the regime. Not what the Obama administration did was just the opposite. Stand with the regime against the Cuban people.
Right, yeah, and funnel money into that country that just ends up going to the regime and doesn't go to the people anyway. Congressman Mario DiazBalart from Florida, a Cuban American. Sir, thank you so much for taking the time.
My pleasure. Thank you, sir.
All right, let's continue the conversation with Morgan Ortega, former spokesperson at the State Department under President Trump. Morgan, good to see you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Rob.
Of course. So when you hear the liberals right now, they're all saying, oh, well, Trump put all these sanctions in place, and that's why the country's doing as badly as it is now, almost as if to try and fool people into believing that these people were prospering, 5-7 years ago, which is a complete lie. What's your response to that?
Well, Rob, I thought your monologue was just fantastic in really detailing all of this out. This is nothing but the Cuban communist regime that is responsible for the economic and physical calamity that the Cuban people are going through. They've been devastated by COVID-19. And it's really exposed. See, there's been this broad narrative among the left that it's the socialist paradise down in Cuba and that people have amazing health care. Well, COVID-19 just, totally blew the lid off of that. And you're seeing people in the streets, as you detailed, shouting Libertad, shouting for freedom, shouting for democracy, carrying the American flag. So I would like to know, for the left, for Ben Rhodes, for everyone who are tweeting and saying the most ridiculous things, that somehow America is responsible for what's happening to the devastation that's happening to the Cuban people today. I challenge them, go find a Cuban protester that's holding the American flag and ask that Cuban protester if it's the American government that's responsible or if it's this heinous communist regime that's responsible. I'll tell you what the Cuban people tell you, and it's not what Ben Rhodes tweeted today.
I couldn't agree more with that. And like I said, I'm sure you've probably been there too. I've been there. I've talked to these people. You understand how they really feel. They have to whisper it because you never know when somebody's listening, but they do whisper it, and they whisper loudly. Do you agree that the Obama administration helped to fuel the extension, the continuation of this communist regime with what they did, the moves that they made during the Obama administration, opening everything up? That money didn't really go to the people, did it?
Well, undoubtedly, they not only did that in Cuba, they did it in Iran. Remember, the Green Revolution happened the first year of the Obama presidency in Iran, right? It's the same sort of thing. You see these situations where the Iranian people, similar to the Cuban people today, were trying to rise up against their government, call for freedom and democracy. Not only did we not support them, 4 years later, in the second administration, we cut a deal with the regime that ensured that they would stay in power through billions of dollars of sanctions relief. So this is a pattern for people who think this way. And let me tell you something that I think is incredibly important about all of this, Rob, is that we are in the middle of geopolitical competition around the world with China and with Russia. It is a competition between the Chinese Communist Party and democracy and a republic here in the United States. And so we're at the 100-year anniversary. This just happened a few weeks ago, the 100-year anniversary of the Chinese Communist Party. So any place around the world like Cuba where the communists are failing, this is embarrassing to the Chinese. And we need to not only support the Cuban people, of course we should be doing this, but we should also be exposing to the world the dangers and the perils of communism. So it's not all like fluffy and this wonderful socialist utopia where everyone has great health care in Cuba. And it's not this wonderful place in China where it's basically everyone's practicing capitalism and maybe they don't have the same freedoms as we do, but they're rich. Not true. There's a genocide there. What do communist regimes bring you? They bring you genocide. They bring you death. They bring you a terrible life for people. That's what plays out in the end. And what's unfortunate is that the American left, and many of them, not all of them, I thought President Biden actually had a really good statement today, but many on the left would rather blame America than expose the communists. Well, and it's truly mind-boggling.
It's their whole idea. I mean, all of this, they can't admit it fails, right? Because then everything they believe is essentially wrong down to its core. So they have to weasel out of it somehow. Morgan Ortegas, thank you so much for coming on. That's a cool coat, by the way. I've never seen a coat like that, but I like it. It's good to see you as always, Morgan.
You're welcome. Thanks, Rob.